welcome back to another episode of Cigar and Bourbon Conversations. We got a special guest here today, our mother, Karen. And Kenny is hosting again with me. And Kenny is smoking a cigar right now. What kind of cigar are you smoking?
Smoking a Monte Cristo 1939 anniversary, 1935 anniversary,
Oh, nice.
and drinking some Knob Creek smoked maple.
Oh, okay. Well, I have an unlit cigar. It's the Hellion by Oliva, which I love. I'm not smoking it because Mom's sitting right beside of me. I don't want to blow smoke on her. Instead of doing a bourbon today, I'm going light today, so Jeremy made me a margarita.
Nice.
But I'll drink a bourbon later tonight. And I'm going to probably open up a bottle of Blanton's because somehow I've accumulated multiple bottles since I found a place where I can buy them. So now I can actually
Awesome.
drink it. But awesome. So
Yeah.
I thought we'd start with asking Mom some questions, or her just telling us about like how either her grandparents met, how her parents met, and just random questions. Take it from there. And but then at the end of the podcast, I'm going to ask her just some fun random questions. You know. So Kenny, how do you want to start it? What question do you have to start it off?
Well, um, I've had quite a few in-depth conversations with my grandfather um, about how he and our grandmother met. They met in Fort Knox, and they met at a USO club called the Lucky Strike.
Yeah.
So Mom, what is your side of the story?
Well, Mommy said she was just recently out of the wax, and Grandpa had come back from overseas, and she was employed at that time at the American Tobacco Company. They made Lucky Strike cigarettes, and plus that club was called Lucky Strike or something like that. But anyway, she was still in the habit of going to USO clubs, and she loved men in uniform. She told even my daughter Jenny she loved a man in uniform. So she went to the USO clubs, and she met Dad there.
And tell them what the wax is. A lot of people don't know what the wax is.
Oh, the wax is a army for the women, and it was started in World War II, I think now, and the waves were for the Navy, and the wax was for the Army and Air Force.
And what did Grandma do in that?
She could draw real good, and so her job was sitting in front of a drawing board, and she drew the blueprints of the airplane engines. And she said it's the hardest job she ever had. She had to be in front of that drawing board until they told her to quit, and that was not just 8 hours a day.
Wow. Wow. So they met at a USO club?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And just hit it off?
Well, what she told me was Dad kept. She shouldn't even give them their phone number out as far as that went. They did have a telephone down the hallway in their apartment at that time. The phones were in the hallways. And she shouldn't even give them that telephone out. And he kept calling. And when he kept calling and he's kind of chasing her, I guess, like young men do even today. And they started going pretty hot and heavy, and first thing you knew they were married.
Wow.
And let's see, she said that the the wax was something that she used to get away from home with. She was only 17, I think, when she went to the wax. Of course, there wasn't any computers. There was no birth records. Who's going to check up on your age, you know?
Right.
So she decided to leave home because it was hard on the farm, and she was scared of Grandma. So she packed up to go. She would go downtown from high school every day for ever how many visits it took to go down there to sign up. And then the night that she packed to go, Aunt Dale was really worried. She said, "You leave me here by myself." And Grandmommy told her, said, "We'll send for you." And anyway, uh, she got everything packed. The next morning, she thought, just to sure, everybody's up at 6, and the bus come through at 6 o'clock. The Army bus did. And she said that she knew, if somebody sees me carrying this suitcase, somebody's going to go and tell Ma. And then she won't be going anywhere. Because now they minded. They obeyed. Two ways about it. And she left her suitcase in the willow trees down by the creek and went onto the road and got on the Army bus without anything. So when she got to where she's going, she didn't have anything. And she said the other girls felt sorry for her, and every one of them gave her something. They thought she'd lost her suitcase.
Oh my God. And was it before she joined the wax or after that she was approached by model people to model? Okay.
After she was working at the American Tobacco Company. That's when she got out of the wax. And she'd been out there for a while now before she met Dad. And I don't know exactly what the time span was, but she was a inspector. She made inspector in that company. And then she did a commercial for them with sing a little song or something, advertising Lucky Strike cigarettes.
Yeah.
And anyway, she said that then she was approached by people wanting her to model and go to California. And Aunt Dale told her, said, by that time Aunt Dale had joined them. She said, Dealey said, "Go ahead and take that offer. You never have to come to this factory again." And Mommy said no, said, "I'm not going that far from home." And after that, she met Dad.
And how did your grandmother first meet Grandpa, their first encounter? That's always my favorite story.
They were married about a year before Mommy wanted to go home. And anyway, he said Mommy had sat down and drew him a map. To get there, Mousy evidently was not on a map or something. And in Knott County. And she drew him a map, and Dad said he followed the map and got there. And we got the right house and everything. And he said he's knocking on the door, and Mommy slipped up behind him, tapped him on the shoulder, And by that time, Grandma had opened the door and said, just, "Young man, who are you and what are you doing here?" or something like that. And Mommy told her, said, "This is my husband." Well, she told Dad, said, "You look real hot and tired," said, "Come on in here and I'll give you something cold to drink." And she poured him out a glass of moonshine. I don't know how big the glass was or anything. And Dad said he was so thirsty, he started drinking. He thought, "Oh, God, what's this woman give me?"
He thought it was water. Yeah, it was fire
But
water.
Grandma did. He said the old lady did it for Venus.
And Grandma, she made moonshine. She's a bootlegger.
My grandma did, yeah.
Yeah, she's a very interesting person.
Yeah, my grandpa got killed in the mines, I think it was 1932. And Mommy wasn't very old, about 8 years old then. And Aunt Dale was about 6. And Grandma said she had to have a way to make a living. And she didn't want to lose her farm or anything, so that came down. She inherited that. So she sold a stand of timber and bought the makings of moonshine steel, put it all together, and she knew how to make whiskey because she'd helped her daddy.
Right. Yeah.
He wasn't a bootlegger, but he made whiskey. And anyway, she got her nephews to help her sister's boys. And she made a good living with it. She didn't get caught until mid-40s, I guess. That's when she got caught.
During the
She got
Prohibition?
caught right, I guess it's right middle 40s when she got caught, or 1940, something like that, she got caught. She didn't get caught. Actually, the boys, she come out
This
from
is
the
the story I
hills.
like. Yeah.
She came out from the hills to get them something to eat. And what time she was down at the house packing up some food for them, the revenuers came, found the steel and cut the steel, and arrested her nephews. So Grandma didn't want the boys to go to prison. They were so young. And her sister's boys, it's probably about like her own children. I know that's the way I look at my nieces and nephews. And so she went to see the judge and told him, said, listen, said, steel's on my land, and these are young boys. I don't want their life ruined with this. And told him, said, just let me go stand trial, and I'll take all the blame, go up. He said, now, Rhodey, said, you know I can't do that. But this is what I can do. They can go join the army, and you will go to prison for a year and a day.
Wow.
And that way it got the boys out. And those boys weren't even 18 years old.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of them might have been 18, one 17, and the other might have been 15 or 16, something like that. They were very young, but like I said, they didn't ask no any questions, you know.
Yeah.
And so they joined the army, and all four of them came back home.
Wow. Wow.
All four of them survived the war and came back home.
That's awesome.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it
always
is.
love
Well,
that
Mom-
story.
But Mom, let me ask you a question. How many siblings did Grandma Dealey have?
6 living. And Grandma had 9 children altogether. 2 passed at birth. And they were girls. I think maybe she might have had one boy, I'm not sure, that might have died at birth. But mostly what I have heard Grandma say, she had girls. And even she said when her husband got killed, she said there she had that farm to run and those children and not a boy on the place to help. So the girls had to do all the work. And Grandma stayed in the hills to make a
Sounds
living.
about right. Yep.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
just love hearing those stories.
Well, I remember the conversations I've had with our grandpa, and when he did come to visit, Rhodey, he always liked Rhodey, and Rhodey always liked him. And every night before he goes to bed, she always had him a nice cold glass of moonshine on his nightstand for him to drink and relax before he went to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So Rhodey might have been a very unique individual, but you can tell she was actually a very caring
Even the
individual.
sheriff never tried to arrest Grandma because he knew what she's doing. But he told me one time, and by that time he was like circuit court clerk. He said, I always admired Rhodey. She kept her family going. She kept her home. And she sent her girls, excuse me, she sent her girls to high school. A lot of kids didn't get to go to high school. They had no money. That was it. The school bus run just had no money. And Grandma had the money to send hers. And she told me one time she had just about whip them every day to make them go to school. She'd march them to the, her or Melissa, one would march them to the school bus every day. Make them go.
Yep.
Because the older set of girls didn't get to go to high school. See, Grandma had like 4 older ones and 3 younger ones, and there's a 7-year stretch in between. And the older ones didn't get to go to high school. I don't think there was a high school at that time in the county. But they did go through the 8th grade, and then she made the 3 youngest ones go to high school.
Wow.
I think that's the way it was.
Well, when Grandma Rhodey was in prison for that 1 year and a day, who took care of the sisters?
Melissa, and Aunt Ralph, and Uncle Ralph.
Okay. And Melissa was also, her nickname was Bug, right?
Right, her nickname was Bug. And they took care of Mommy and Dale. And they were young when, Mommy, Grandma was in prison, and they sent him to school, kept the farm going. Ralph worked the mines, and then he had to go to war. So, and Ralph was a very unique individual himself. He was in, I think, 3 different theaters of war, or 4. And maybe one was over in the Philippines during that death march, and he survived that.
Baton Death March.
Ooh.
What was,
Yeah.
yeah. He
Yeah.
came back. He was okay physically, but every now and then he would have to go away for maybe psychiatric treatment. Then he'd be okay. He'd come back home, resume working in the mines. And then it would happen again. But as he got older, it happened less and less. And when I took you all around to see them, he didn't bother me anymore. His nerves wasn't any good. If you remember, he never came in the house when we were there. He
Yeah.
loved you all. He would smile at you, and he would just walk along the fence line smoking his cigarettes.
Yeah, and this is
He tore him.
right around
His
the
nerves was
time
tore
that
up. Yeah, I think maybe
yeah, yeah, that's right
PTSD. I
around the
guess is what
time.
they call it.
Yeah, right
Huh?
around about that time, Carol and I were small kids. I say we were in a
Very
single
small.
digits in
Yeah.
age,
I say Carol don't
and
even remember it.
yeah, I mean, I do remember Alice or Bug
Mhm.
vaguely. Um, I do think this before our younger brother um, was born. Um, so it's quite a few years ago, but I do vaguely remember her.
You want to repeat that?
He does vaguely remember her.
Yeah, vaguely. Yeah, she's a
Yeah.
good person. She was a real good person. She never had any children. She always wanted children. The doctor told her she couldn't have them. But they didn't know much at that time. It might have been Uncle Ralph who couldn't have them.
Right.
But she helped raise us. She helped
Yeah,
Mommy a whole lot.
yeah.
She
Well,
did things she didn't have to
uh,
do.
well, going back to your mom and dad, after they were married, where did they live? Did they live on base there at Fort Knox?
They lived on base at Fort Knox for a while,
Okay.
and they lived on base for a while. Then he bought a home out there towards Fort Knox. It was a 2-bedroom brick, he told me. Wasn't long. Mommy wasn't satisfied there, so he sold that and bought a trailer to live in. Trailer. He was satisfied with that for a while. When he went to Korea, he pulled the trailer back home and set it up. And wasn't long she wanted to sell it, and then he bought her a house back there, which the house is still standing. I pointed out
Oh,
to
yeah. Okay.
I pointed the house out to JP, I guess. Magnum wasn't long ago. He's over there.
Okay.
Yeah. And so,
Yeah,
Mommy she just couldn't be, she's one of those people who couldn't be satisfied living in any one place. She wanted to move all the time. And Dad was a
okay.
homebody person.
And
Do you have any
Grandpa
stories?
isn't from Kentucky.
No, he's not from Kentucky.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
He's from Seattle, Washington.
Right.
He was
Right.
born and raised in Seattle. He was born in a Swedish hospital in King County.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you said when they lived on base, Grandpa's told me a couple of really funny stories about some interactions between those two while they're on base housing. Do you have any stories to tell? Um,
I don't know about the base housing. He told me a story about coming home one morning from. Well, I guess Mommy's one told me, and I asked Dad, and he told me, yeah, it was true, but wasn't any of my business. He never didn't really want to talk about it. And he came home from guard duty, and he was sleepy, and he told Mommy he's going to lay down. And Mommy said, would you like to have some breakfast? He said, yeah. Dad's accent. It'd be very nice. And he said, after a while, she came and got him up, and she had a plate set, a spoon, a fork, and a knife, and he said a good cup of coffee. and on the plate was a raw potato she peeled and left it there.
Yeah.
He drank his coffee and went back to bed.
Well, this is his version of the events.
Now
And,
that was very mean.
um, happened everything exactly the way you said, except when she put the plate in front of him with a peeled potato. He was like, "What the hell is this?" And and he said that she said something to him, then clocked him in the back of the head with a cast iron frying pan, and
Oh,
drug
God.
and drug his limp body out into the street where the base housing was. And when he came to, he came in and kicked her out of the house, and she went to the MPs, and the MPs came and got him, took him to Stockade, and
That
his
might have
commanding
happened.
officer.
And Mommy was pretty well. She was a pretty hyper person.
Yeah.
She sure
Well,
was. I wouldn't doubt that for 1 minute. But see, they didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me that, and Dad didn't either.
Well, there's
well,
things that Grandpa would tell the grandsons and not share
Not
with
me.
us girls.
Yeah,
Or
that's
good.
right.
Yeah.
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 Well, Grandpa also said his CO got him out of the Stockade and told him he needed to go home and make up with his wife and for it to never happen again because you can't have domestic disputes on base. And he went home and they made up and they they went on.
You know, that's before he had any children, too. That's before they had children. I don't know what was wrong.
Well, from the
No.
stories, it sounds like they could fight hard, but they loved hard too.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
Yeah, like when you were talking about like when it was really hot one summer, they opened up like the refrigerator door to cool off, and they made
Oh,
love,
yeah.
and it was like things you read in a book.
Yeah. Well, he did tell me a story that they decided on a weekend. This is back during the time when you was active duty. You could not wear civilian clothes. And you had to wear your uniform, your Class A uniform, your alphas, whenever you went out in town. So they decided they're going to spend a Friday night. They're going to go to Louisville. They went and watched a movie. It was a good time. Then they decided to take a walk along the Ohio River.
Oh,
And
yeah, that.
it was a really nice evening. And he said our grandmother just turned to him one time, during the walk and just said, "You know what? I'm so mad at you. I could just strangle you." And Grandpa at that point in time just like, well, if that's the case, he just picked her up and threw her in the river. And just kept
He
on
did.
walking.
He walked to the riverbank, just pitched her in. He said she swam back to the bank, and she said he said that she made him pay. Well, Maryland's one told me that he told me about doing that. Then he left it there. Maryland told me he said that your mother made him pay for that for 6 months.
Mm, I
I
could
know that.
Now
easily
I
see
can
that happening.
understand Dad doing that when you've got a real nice evening going, and you think everything is fine. Then the other person looks at you and says something like that. I'm so mad at you I could just kill you or something like that. And you've not done anything. You're wondering what world's going on. I guess he just figured maybe more or less. Well, I'll just show her and just tossed her in the river. You know.
It's like you can't make this up.
No, there ain't no way you make it
He's
up.
off.
Now, do you want to just clue us in on who Marilyn is?
Oh yeah, I was going to ask that.
Oh
too.
yeah, that's my stepmother.
She was a wonderful
She-
woman.
I liked her, yeah.
Yes.
I liked Marilyn. She was good to you. She was good to me and all my children. She was a good woman.
Yes,
She really
absolutely.
was.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes her kids thought she was too hard. I thought she was fine, but maybe it's because the life I led and the life they led, maybe to them she was hard. To me, she was just fine. I didn't,
Yeah.
you know.
And they resided in Seattle, and then they moved down to Nakata, right?
Yeah,
where they
to
retired.
Narcata for their retirement, yeah.
Because I remember the first time I went to go visit as an adult, I didn't have any socks on. And she kept offering me socks. I'm like, I'm good. She's
Yeah.
like, no, we're not going to walk around here like some barefoot hillbillies. And I was thinking, well, I think I'm technically a hillbilly. But then she was always so sweet. She's like, you can call me Mama or Grandma. It's up to you. Or you can call me Marilyn, But she was always
Yeah.
just,
Well, I can
wonderful.
tell you straight up. After I joined the Navy and I finished my A school, I got stationed in Woodby Island, Washington. And Grandpa came up and get me for a holiday weekend to spend with him in Maryland. And, back here in the mountains, it was always Mama and Papa.
Right.
Called him Papa. And he corrected me very quickly. He says, we're not back out of the mountains. It's either Granddad or Grandpa.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And ever since then, it's been Grandpa.
Yeah.
Or some people are like,
And-
what's a Mama? What's a Papa?
That's right.
They're
That's
not
right.
from, Like, Kenny, tell them that conversation that Marilyn and Kenneth had, Grandpa had about milk. You got to tell us.
Well,
I've
Mom
never
had
heard this
actually,
now. I haven't heard this.
Mom, you actually flew into SeaTac airport, and Grandpa and Marilyn came and got me from Woodby Island. Actually, I take it back. I actually took the ferry from Woodby Island to SeaTac, and John picked me up, my Uncle John, and met up with Grandpa and Marilyn, and then we went and picked you up from SeaTac Airport, and we were driving down to Narcotta, Washington, where the retirement home was. And I was in the front seat with Grandpa, and you and Marilyn in the back seat. And Marilyn was he was like, Dad, we don't forget we need to stop and get a gallon of milk. And of course, our father was just messing with her, and says, what'd you say? We need to stop and get a gallon of milk. What'd you say? She said, a moo cow. We need to stop and get a moo cow.
But she used some, unsavory language with that, though, right?
Oh, yeah, well, we need to stop and get an effing moo cow.
she,
And she was, and he was like, yes, dear, we will do that.
I used to get so tickled at her. Dad would say something, and she'd say, Dad, don't talk, Father. She'd say, Father, don't talk like that. Don't say those words. He'd say, it's not Sunday. I say what I want to.
Oh, she had a wonderful
Well-
mouth on her, too. Well, it always cracked me up.
Well,
she was this little bitty
I
old
got a-
woman, and
She was
I
little.
love
And
it. The things that come out of her mouth
she
crack
was
me
so
up.
she was full of spitfire. She was full of
Yeah, she
spitfire.
was fun.
Well, she had a refrigerator magnet on her refrigerator that described her to a T, from 0 to bitch in 0.5 seconds.
Yeah, they had some.
And she had another, and she had another little decoration in the guest bathroom that said,
Yes.
it said,
I know what you're talking about.
if you sprinkle when you tinkle, be a sweetie and wipe up the seedy. And I remember that from when we were like 4 or 5, and we actually went up to Seattle and lived there for a little bit. And she still has it. And
awesome.
the last time I was there, when our grandpa was still alive, it was still there. So
It was still there, yeah.
so
I
hopefully
hope
it's still
people kept her stuff because they spent years collecting that stuff.
Well, I
you
remember
know.
she had this big wooden spoon and fork in their kitchen that I always just loved. I was like, I really would like to get something like that someday. I hope people kept
Well-
some of her stuff and is using it.
Well, it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas one year, and again, Grandpa came up to Whoopi Island and got me from the base and we drove back down, and Bob and our Aunt Sandy and our cousins were there, and Marilyn asked me, Ken, when you get an opportunity, can you go outside and get some wood for the stove? I said, absolutely. And I was just talking with the family, and then about 2 minutes later, she was like, now, Ken, I thought I told you to go out and get some wood. I was like, yes, Grandma, I'll go get it right now. And that's when our Aunt Sandy was just like, well, when Mom says and when you have an opportunity to do something, she really means right now.
Right now.
So, so she did have a little mean streak to her. So it took me a couple of visits, to actually um, to learn her demeanor and and all her little innuendos. But she was a great lady, and she always treated me like one of her own. And
She did me too. She treated me so good, and I tried my best to be good to her. I sure did because I appreciated her being good to Dad. She was real good for Dad. And anyway, I missed her for a long time after she passed away. Dad would pick me up. You know, I would fly in that little Astoria airport. I think it may be twice I did that. And we was always used to Marilyn being at home waiting for us, and it was so awful when we walked through the door and she wasn't there. And
yeah,
so, we talked about it and stuff, but we got used to, we had to try kind of get used to that.
sure,
Now, Dad, when he was in service overseas in Germany and Korea, he got a lot of awards for the work he did in
yeah,
the service. And he showed me his awards one time. I can't even remember all of them, but he was he's the only person I guess I've ever met that actually lived two lifetimes in one. He sure did.
oh yeah. Well,
Everything that he did,
his
most people can't do in one lifetime.
well um, his awards also included one. He was Purple Heart. He he was hit by a mortar round one time, so he did have a Purple Heart. He had a Silver Star. He had a Bronze Star with a V for Valor, and various other awards for the different campaigns that he was in Europe and Korea.
Yeah, and
Now,
he
Mom,
had letters,
now,
also letters that was written out
yeah,
by these
letters of
governments of these
commendation.
foreign countries commending him for the work that he did after the wars, you know. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really awesome. I sure did.
Well, Mom,
He was a
what?
very patriotic person.
Yeah. Could you tell us about what our grandfather did in the European um, theater when he was in World War II?
Well, Kenny, I'm sorry.
Did you hear me,
Mom's phone
Mom?
was ringing. No, the phone was
Okay.
ringing.
Can you tell us what our grandfather did in the European theater in World War II? What was his job?
His job in World War II.
I don't remember what he said his job was. I know it was the second day. He didn't go on the beaches in Normandy the first day. I believe it was the second day.
Second day.
And
Well, one of the reasons why he ended up in Fort Knox to begin with was because that's where all of our armored development was for tanks, and he was a tank commander,
I didn't know that.
and
So he's a tank
yeah,
commander,
and
okay?
so after the second, during the second day, D-Day +1, that's when they brought all the mechanized divisions ashore, and he was a part of that second wave on the second day.
Thank God.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
God.
I'm just glad. I mean, he's no better than anybody else. I know that, but to me, he is, and I'm glad he was not there on the first day.
Yeah.
But anyway, now he told me it was harder to fight in Korea than what it was in Europe,
Yeah,
and he said Korea was harder, a lot harder.
yeah. Well, he was telling me that at that point in time, they were in between wars, and they had built up so much for the Second World War that they started downsizing, and they took a lot of the tank operators and they made him into infantrymen. And that's what they did to him. They made him to an infantryman, and that's kind of how he was wounded by a mortar round. Because at that point in time, he was infantry. And they
I know
offered him
now
a
he got
battlefield
shot more
commission.
than, he thought he got shot twice, I think, in Korea. But he said when they did the physical, they told him it was 3 times or something like that.
Yeah.
And he said he never remembered the last time. Maybe I'm thinking he might have caught two pieces of shrapnel at one time or something, and maybe they thought it was 3 times. It wasn't, you know.
Yeah.
He said one time he got wounded in Korea, and they were so loaded down with the wounded and the MAX unit, he just went to a tent there somewhere, and he just got in a bunk and put some more cover over on him from another bunk, and some little nurse come in there the next morning and said, "You still alive?" He said, "Yeah." He said, well, and then they took him in for surgery.
Oh,
Tough
But
guy.
you know, that's because he didn't, you know, he just went off somewhere and laid down, you know.
Yeah. Well, um, when he went to Korea, where was he and grandmother married at that point in time? I think they were.
Huh?
was he married to Grandma when he went to Korea?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
He sure was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he
Kenneth was born what time he was in Korea.
yeah he told me some really some interesting stories why he's in Korea. He was he was one of the first divisions to arrive and one of the last ones to leave. So he was there for, gosh, what, a good 2.5, 3 years during that whole conflict.
Yeah, and he said that during that time, he told me he was captured twice, but both times he got away from them, from the Koreans. By the time they was marching to where they was going with them, he got away both
Hmm.
times. And he said one time he stumbled and kind of fell over a ditch line. They marched right on by him, everybody didn't even notice him. So that's just a stroke of luck he got by that time. But he said they'd always taught him, I think if I got this right now, when you get captured, try to get away before they get to where they're going with you.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, and if I'm not mistaken, he was telling me about one of the winters there. It was so harsh that
Yeah.
he wasn't one of the Marines. Well, he was Army, by the way, but he wasn't part of one of the Marine units that fought at the Chosen Reservoir.
Sebastopol?
No, it was the Chosen Reservoir,
Okay.
and the winter was so harsh they called it the Frozen Chosen, and that was those were Marine units. But I do remember him telling me that they supported the Marine units during that whole thing. So
Well,
now
now,
that could be that could be just logistics, but I don't think it was actually combat. So
yeah, well, see, now Magnum spent a week with Dad, and he said it
hmm
was one long history lesson from the time he got up to the time he went to bed.
He loved it
And
though.
he loved it. He sure did. He sure did.
yep.
He loved being up
Well,
there with Dad at that time.
well, when I got back from Iraq, and the ne- and when I went to see him after Iraq, um, and I was exchanging our war stories, fighting and um, in the year 2000 was light years different from fighting in the 1940s.
Oh, yeah.
It might as well have been, two different universes. And I do remember when I was with my reserve unit, it was the middle of January and it was really cold, and we've set up our tents and we was in our sleeping bag, and we had cell signal, and I was like, I want to call my grandfather. I'm going to tell him, this, he can, something that I can connect with him with. And, I was like, hey, Grandpa, I'm sleeping on the ground and it's like 2 degrees outside and it's so cold. And he basically started to, rip me a new one. He
He
was
did
like,
what now?
he,
Ripped him a new
he
one.
ripped me a
Talking
new
about
one.
being cold.
And he was like, you don't know what code is. He was like, wait until you are in Bastogne in the middle of winter when it's so cold outside that all you have to keep warm is your field jacket, and you wake up inside your tent and your head is stuck to the bulkhead of the tank. He was like, and until you're that cold, I don't ever want you to call me and tell me about how bad you got it. Click. And I was like, okay, love you, Grandpa. So, um,
You probably needed to
so,
hear that though. Like he had it worse than
well,
me.
at
I
that
know
point in time,
that's another thing too. People thinks, and I told Kenneth this when Dad passed. You know, I said, you know what? I said I got the best inheritance anybody could ever get, and that was he taught my son how to be a man. He sure did, and that was the best thing Dad could have ever done for me. It sure was.
yeah,
He left me that legacy. And you, and I think a lot of it's in Magnum from just that short
Oh
time Magnum
yeah.
was with him.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was right
yeah.
there in you two boys.
Yeah, I'm telling you, he Magnum just fell in love with him.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
yeah. That's why
I
Grandma
can,
fell in love with Dad. To tell the truth about it, because they were both just alike. There were no nonsense and hard working. And if it didn't make sense, Grandma didn't talk about it.
Right.
Dad's the same way.
yeah.
Gotta make
Well,
sense.
well, I do remember one morning I just got finished spending the weekend with Grandpa in Maryland, and he was driving me back up to a place called Muckatill to catch the Muckatill ferry to go across the Sound and get back to Woolby Island, so I could take a bus back to base. And John had actually met us there, Uncle John, and we had breakfast. Actually, Grandpa and John were actually getting ready to load a house onto a barge and float it across the Sound
Yes,
onto an
Lord.
island and place it on a new foundation. And and um, and I remember telling my grandpa that in a couple of months I was actually going to fly back home to Kentucky for leave and actually see you, Mom. And I was like, well, you know. I bought the plane ticket, and Mom said she'll reimburse me. She owed me money, anyways. And that's when my grandfather looked me dead in the eye and said, boy, your mother owes you nothing. She carried you, she raised you, and she got you to where you are now. So she doesn't owe you a damn thing. You have to make your own way in life. And you don't ask for anything from anybody. What you
And you
earn,
never
what you
have
have
all
is what
these
you earn.
years. You haven't.
And and
Yes, okay.
that made such an impression on
Sorry,
me
Kenneth.
that I will never forget the look in his eyes and the finger that was pointed right in my face, and him making that statement. And our Uncle John, who was no kid, he was a grown man of his own. He was just sitting next to my grandpa, going like, "Yep, Dad's right." And um, so yeah, those were learning moments that I think shaped me and molded me. Um, and that's when I learned that hey, no one owes you a thing. What you have in life is what you earn,
Mhm.
and
But now you've helped
that's
me out a lot. When I was at home with Carol and Magnum, and they were little, you sent money home. You helped me a whole lot. You sure did.
Well, after carrying me for 9 months, changing my diapers, wiping my butt, raising me, and getting my crazy ass all the way through high school, that was the least I could do.
Well, listen what. But you know, it's really not a burden to raise your children like that. I mean, you can make it a burden or you can make it a fun thing.
Right.
Either
Yeah.
one you want to do.
Yeah.
Me, I thought I decided I would make it a fun thing, and I enjoyed my children. Cause remember when me and you get up and run the railroad tracks?
Yep,
Yep, we sure did. We
yep,
did a
sure
lot of
did.
stuff. You go to work with me, and you'd help me in a shop. You'd sweep power for me all day long. I didn't even have much money to
Well,
give you for that because I had to have it for bills.
well,
But you know what? You was with me every step of the way.
well. One
Karyl would
another
go.
very
You step with me, wouldn't you?
Yep. I love going to work with
uh,
her.
another very formative moment in my life is I was in high school, and I think Carol was a freshman in high school. I was a senior,
Hmm.
and I said something really out of the way to you, and you smacked me so hard, my eyes were doing slot machines,
I
and
did.
you, yeah,
Bobblehead.
and you were so angry with me. You didn't speak to me for a couple of days, and it was one morning we was in the car together, just me and you. And I looked over to you and I said, "Mom, I am so sorry." And you looked over to me and says, "It's okay, baby, I love you."
I
And
said, what?
you said, "It's okay, baby, I love you."
Yeah.
Oh.
And and I remember that was probably the hardest I ever been hit by anybody in my life.
Oh, Lord. People, I didn't mean to be that mean.
Well, there's been times I
Well,
felt like doing that to one of my kids.
apparently I deserved it. So,
Yeah, but I loved you too. And it was hard. We kind of had a hard time, but now we had a time, that when I look at all my children, I'm thinking, well, none of you turned out bad at all. None of you
mm,
turned out bad.
yeah, because we got our ass beat if we tried.
I gotta say too, when we were going to Seattle to visit family and stuff, I tell you, Bob and Sandy and John and Robin were just the best
Oh,
hosts.
yeah. They
Like they
really were.
really taught me how I need to host company when they come here. I mean, they really like raised the bar up, especially John and Robin.
Robin,
You
yeah.
know, they were well. I don't know. Both couples were incredible. But I just remember
Yeah.
waking up one morning at Robin's house to the smell of biscuits and gravy, and I was like, ah. She was just like,
She
she was a great
she's a
host. I
West
tell you,
Virginia
thank
She
you.
girl.
was a great hostess, and
Fun.
when I took Penny there, she was so good to Penny. And she took Penny for a ride in her Benz and let the top down, and Penny come back tell me about it,
Yeah.
she wanted a convertible. And I mean, Robin was so good. She took us downtown, and we did everything downtown. She was just so good with us. She really was.
And I remember like Sandy talking to me
Well,
about, like investments like in stocks and IRAs and all that, and I got me to thinking, and now me and Jeremy's got some really good stocks and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what got the
yeah.
ball rolling there. But John, I'm telling you, John is so fun. He laughs so hard. It's just like bellowing laugh. Like I remember we
Yeah.
went to the wineries with him, or just listening to him. It was just the laughter. He was
Yeah, he's real
really,
good though.
yeah.
Me and
He
Penny,
really took the room
Yeah.
whenever he walked in.
he was
Well,
always real good to me. And me and Penny and him went out in the valley one time to clean crab. That's how I learned how to clean crab. He showed us
Yeah.
how. Me and Penny went
yeah.
out there and did it. And he's had this big belly laugh.
Yeah.
Jolly. He's jolly.
Jolly.
And
Yes.
Sandy, whenever I went to Sandy's house, she was just treating me like an angel.
Oh yeah.
She sure did.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm telling you, it
Well,
just really
And
taught
Penny
me.
loved being at both houses. She loved being at
yeah.
Sandy's house too. She sure did. And Sandy just like she No, she was my sister. That's it.
Yeah, she was just a really wonderful person to talk to. Do you need
That's
to get that,
Candace.
Mom? You
That's
want to go
Candace.
get it?
Yeah.
Her brother's calling.
Hello.
So you, okay. Me and Kenny can take it from here. That is our uncle making his debut on our podcast.
We
He's a
won't say
wonderful
from
person
where.
too. Let me close this door real quick though.
We won't say from where.
Yeah, our Uncle Kenneth is a colorful character too. We love him. We do.
Yeah,
We love
yeah.
him.
He's definitely very unique. But I want to ask Mom when she does come back. Because our grandmother did live in Seattle for a short period of time with our grandfather, with her and our Uncle Kenneth.
Yeah.
And I got a follow-on story, about that. But yeah, our grandpa, our grandpa and our great grandmother and our grandmother. I mean, I'm telling you, these were some very rugged individuals. They don't make people like that anymore,
Nope. Nope.
and that's probably good in some ways, and it's probably bad in others.
Yeah,
But
I think. Yeah, I get. Yeah.
I mean, they say hard times make good people. Good people. Well, I'm sorry. Hard times make strong people. Strong people make good times. Good times make weak people, and weak people make hard times, and the cycle starts over again. I think we're in that cycle again, where where we're in good times, and they call the World War II and the Great Depression generations the greatest generations for a reason, because they had to live through some very, very tough times, especially in Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
So um, those are some hard people,
Yeah.
and you know um, it
Yeah.
definitely makes me appreciate our lifestyles that we have now. I mean, we're doing a
Absolutely.
podcast,
I
and
know. How fun.
yeah, and while they were having kids just so to have enough hands, to work the farm. So,
Right. Exactly.
like our brother would call cheap labor.
Yeah. And I love hearing about, mom's upbringing and stuff, the moon shining and all that. I keep thinking I'm listening to an episode of Justified. I
Oh,
love
wow.
it. I watch Justified. I'm like, I know these people. That's my uncle. That's my aunt. Like, but it's like we
hmm
got that side of the family. Then we got the other family up, in Washington State, and things were different there. It's like we got a very well-rounded upbringing of people, and I wouldn't change it
Absolutely.
for anything.
Absolutely. We've talked before in our podcast, about our upbringing. Um, you know, we've actually, when you and I when we would go up to Washington State with Mom, and she would spend time with her dad, and we would go and visit the rest of the family, and
Yeah.
we would actually have discussions about how different our lives would have been if we never went back to Eastern Kentucky. If we would just stayed in Washington State, how different our lives would have been.
Even our
And
personalities, I wonder what.
yeah, absolutely. Could you imagine us without Southern accents?
No, have grandpa's accent and our cousins. It'd be
Oh
different.
wow,
I
yeah.
can't
I mean,
saying
we we have a very fortunate upbringing, and we have a varied background, and
exactly.
um,
That's one reason I probably wouldn't change it, because I feel like we can relate to
absolutely
so
not.
many different types of people from so many
Oh yeah,
different backgrounds and feel comfortable. So it took me a long time to kind of just be like, I wouldn't change anything, I guess, but it took a long road to get there. But
yeah. Well, while we're waiting for our mother, Let me ask you, how was Father's Day for Jeremy?
Good. Good. I think he's had a good day.
Good.
Well, we start on the Friday and then it leads into Sunday. I think he's had a good day. Yeah, I think he has. Yeah,
Oh, good.
good
Oh,
relaxing
good.
day. That's kind of like how we did Mother's Day, just relaxing. And look, our
Well,
mother's
you.
returned. So Kenny's got a question for you about when Grandma Dealey lived in Washington State. She lived there for a little while, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She didn't like it. You know, I don't know much about it. She wouldn't talk much about it. And Dad just said it was like another world tour, like he took her to another country to
Yeah.
live. She just couldn't adjust.
Right.
She
Yeah.
couldn't adjust to it.
Well, Mom, how old were you and Uncle Kenneth when Grandmother decided to come back to Eastern Kentucky?
I remember coming back on the train. I remember 3 times. I remember my daddy. We must have been traveling to, or in the car, must have been traveling to Washington State. I don't know. But I wanted to pee. I wanted to pee, you know. So he stopped and told Mom, he said, take her right out there and let her use the toilets, what he said. And so
Hmm.
I did, you know. And I remember her showing me how to hold my panties and everything so it wouldn't get wet. And then I remember once we were in Washington State, I went with him to do something with the car. And I left my little black shoes in the car, and they had the car up on the rack. And he made them bring the car back down so I could get my little shoes. I was crying and wanted my shoes. And I got my shoes. And let's see, I remember one other time with him. He took me for a pony ride. He got mad at Mommy he said at that time, and he just grabbed me up and he spent all day out with me in Seattle there and took me to a place where I'd have a pony ride. And he took me back to that place to show me where I had my first pony ride.
Oh,
Nice.
that's wonderful.
Nice.
Jeez.
So, what age were you and Uncle Kenneth when you guys came back?
Probably young when you came back to Kentucky.
Yeah, I remember the train ride back. Kenneth was sitting in the seat. Me and Mommy and Kenneth sitting in this seat. Over straight from us was another girl sitting in this seat, and you facing each other. And she kept wanting to feed us them old townhouse cookies, and I hate them things. And she kept giving me them old townhouse cookies, and I kept throwing them in the floor. And Mommy took me down by there's a little store on that train and bought me a bag of candy. But I had to be very young. Probably about 3, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me add a
But
follow-on story to that.
Kenneth didn't give her no problems. Seemed like I was the one who gave her the problems. It wasn't Kenneth. Kenneth's as good as he could be.
Well, let me add a follow-on story to that. When Abby was about 5, maybe 6 years old, her and I flew up to Washington State, and so she could meet her great grandfather. And I do remember when they met. Now, our grandfather was a very self-reliant, very rugged individual. He was definitely your John Wayne type of guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you would never see this man wearing skinny jeans. Okay, he would. He was John Wayne. You know, to me, he was always John Wayne.
Yeah.
And now, when he met Abigail, and Abigail with her strawberry blonde hair, he said that she reminded him of Mom when she was little, when our grandmother brought you guys back to Eastern Kentucky, and that is the only time I've ever seen our grandfather get emotional
Yeah.
Oh.
because she reminded him of our mother
Yeah.
at that age,
Wow.
Yeah, they
and
said
that
that he used to, he'd dress me up in little dresses and carry me around on his arm. That's what the people in Mousy told me,
Oh.
They remembered him when I didn't, really all that much. Because they were older, I guess they remembered. And, Dad, like I said, he's a family person. He
Mm.
loved his children. He's a family person.
Yes.
And Linda told me one time that he did most of the parenting.
Oh yeah.
Whatever she meant by that, I don't know. But she said that Dad did the parenting.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that.
I mean, I
Well,
don't doubt what
Dad.
Merlin didn't have everything the way it's supposed to be, but
Yeah.
that's what they said. That's
Oh,
what Linda.
yeah.
That's what Linda said.
Yeah.
Well, our grandfather had, like you said, he's the only guy I think I've ever met in my life that has lived 2 lifetimes.
Yeah.
And the skills that he had, because they owned a house moving business, and every job was different. And he was so good at it, and he was so experienced that even when he retired, my Uncle John would want him to come on jobs with him just to help him out, just because every situation was different, and he needed our grandfather's experience.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
And and um, and that is probably, his greatest legacy is, his he was a family man. He loved his family. He lived. Gosh, could you imagine the experiences that he had all in one lifetime?
No.
All in one lifetime.
No.
Yeah, and lived to be 95, outlived 2 wives, and had a nice young girlfriend of 80.
He did. And she was great too. She was sweet.
Yeah, yeah, I liked Jones. He told me one time, said, he told his friends down at the post office, they had that old man's corner where they would meet and have coffee and talk.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm dating a young chick.
Yep,
She's
yep,
80 years
yep.
old. And, and I'm thinking, well, actually, Dad, she'd have to be 80 or something, or she could, whatever. I don't know.
And two of the most different individuals you could ever imagine. They were 180 degrees different from each other.
But they had a love
And
for animals. Both
Yeah.
of them, for
well,
sure.
when Grandpa say, "Hey, it's not Sunday," I can curse as much as he wants. Now, when Abby and I did go up to Washington State and visit him, Joan told me that our grandfather was having a really good day because he only said GD only 4 times that day. And I remember later that night, that first day, Abby and I were laying in bed, and she rolled over to me and she says, "Dad, what does GD mean?" And sweetheart, you cannot say that. Only our grandpa can say that, okay? You cannot say that. Because I can imagine her saying that to my mother, and her mother is going to ask me, where does she learn to say that? And I'm going to have to face the firing squad. I was like, sweetheart, you cannot ever say that. Ever,
Well,
ever,
now,
ever
we were
again.
watching TV one time, and Karyl was watching TV with me, and on that show, one of these men called the other one a SOB. And Sissy looked at me and she said, Mommy, what is a son of a, And I said, it's a bad word that we don't need to be saying. I said, you cannot say that little word. She never did.
That's right.
That's so
Hey,
Oh,
when you're our grandpa's age and you lived through everything that he
You say
lived
whatever
through,
you want.
and you know what? It's your prerogative. You can say
Right.
whatever you want,
Right.
and he did. And but Joan was kind of a very liberal person, and our grandfather is very conservative. and she would just complain that all he wants to do is just sit in front of that TV and just watch Fox News. That's all he wants to do.
That's what me and him did every evening. We watched Fox News, and we loved it. And we discussed what we were seeing. And he'd tell me what was true and what wasn't true. And even then, he said, "The news is not right. They're not
Yeah.
telling you the truth there." I know.
Well,
So, Mom,
well,
it's
I do.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I do remember, Mother. Do you remember when I was stationed in Okinawa?
Yep.
And and I called home one time, and you was asking me if I was staying safe because of all everything that was going on in Okinawa. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? She said, well, watching the news and they're showing riots and they're showing all this destruction because of everything that happened over there with that little Okinawan girl. And I was like, Mom, nothing like that's happening whatsoever. These folks would protest, but they will schedule a time with the base that they can come and wear their little white flags, wear their little white flags, wear their white bandana, beat their drums for that specified amount of time, then they go home. It was no big deal. And that is when I learned that you can't trust everything you see in the news. And it turned out
No, you
that,
sure can't. They don't tell you half of it. When they do tell it, it's not right. So.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and it turned out that all the film footage they were showing back in the States of all the riots and everything were actually part of Tiananmen Square in China. It was old file footage. So that I learned, pretty early on that um, don't believe everything you see on TV.
Yeah.
So, and now another little funny story, just while I'm thinking about it, about our grandfather. He went to France when they liberated this small town in France. Um, our grandfather told us how he lost his virginity.
Oh, Lord.
Well,
Mom's like,
apparently
don't think it is.
after they liberated this town, they went to this place where there was some women of the night, and
Okay.
and uh, and he was approached by a French lady, and he was like, I don't have any money or anything, and she was like, darling, your money is no good here. So apparently, according to him, he lost his virginity in a French brothel after they liberated the town. God bless that man.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he was something else. So
God
aside
bless that
from
man.
like, so you're going from like grandpa, grandma, and all that. Mom ended up having four other siblings later. Five of them total, her
Yeah.
included. Um, so what was your favorite memory of living in Eastern Kentucky with your siblings? Do you have a favorite memory of,
Mm,
or even not? It don't have to be about the siblings. It can be about your mom. I know you said she used to have parties, and
oh yeah, we wake up and house be full of people and the party in full swing, but there was never any drinking or anything, just music and dancing, and hot dogs and hamburgers. I remember that and potato chips, and I enjoy that stuff myself. Kenneth most times sleep right through it. Uh, I don't know. I guess one of the most favorite times I remember was going to town in Heinemann, and we got to go there about 3 or 4 times a year, and I always look forward to that. One of my favorite times was when Rhonda was born. We were scared to death of her. Wasn't really a favorite time,
I remember
but
this.
Mommy, it was an old saying in the neighborhood. So and so had a wild baby, and we thought
Wild
the
baby.
babies were wild, and they did tell us that they would scratch our eyes out if we got close to them. And so we were afraid of my sister, and we didn't get close to her because of that reason. And it took us about 6 months to really realize she wasn't going to hurt us. And that's what everybody would say. And like some of my cousins would have babies, they'd say, you know, so-and-so had a wild baby last night. But we knew we didn't want to go in that house even, or around them children. And that was one of my favorite times, you know, when I realized my sister wasn't going to hurt me any, and her just a little baby. But we thought they were really wild. And then when Dennis was born, by that time, you know, we knew better. And I remember him being the prettiest baby. And then Billy was born. It seemed like all my favorite times was when the kids were born.
Oh.
It really was. And Billy was born, and I thought he was the fattest little baby I'd ever seen in my life. He probably wasn't, because Dennis was really little, you know. So maybe I was comparing.
Yeah. And Mom has like the best siblings ever.
Yeah, I love my brothers and
They're
sisters.
just
Sure
incredible and amazing. You know, I mean, they're amazing in their own ways.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Mom,
Brothers got some books that
Yeah, all right.
describe
let me
some of
ask,
that.
let me ask you a question. How many times was our grandmother Dealey married?
Huh?
How many times has me and Mom been married?
Grandma, Mommy?
Yeah, your mom.
3 times.
Okay.
3 times.
I know that.
And now, despite being in East Kentucky, back during when poverty was pretty much the rule of the day, tell us how you and your siblings ended up in life.
Oh, yeah.
Did what?
Despite the poverty in Eastern Kentucky, how did your siblings end up in life? Which is
Oh,
impressive.
we ended up pretty well successful, you know.
Educated.
We were all educated. We all went to college. Of course, I'm still cutting hair. That's what I love to do. Rhonda was a nurse. Kenneth was an electrical engineer and electrician. Dennis was a doctor, you know, doctor of medicine. Then he specialized in psychiatry. And Billy,
Now he's an author now. He's an author.
He writes books now. And Billy was he got a teaching degree, but he didn't like teaching, so he ended up with carpentry.
See, that's awesome.
Okay.
That's incredible.
Out of all of you and your siblings, who would you say is probably the most intellectual, the smartest out of the bunch?
Be Dennis.
Dennis. Well, I
Now they
remember
all
Dennis.
say Kenneth. I said
Well,
Dennis, but now Kenneth and Billy says Kenneth. I mean, Dennis and Billy says Kenneth was. And I guess really we all thought that of Kenneth at one time. You know, he was really, really intelligent.
Yeah.
And him and Dennis both could soak up knowledge like a sponge.
Yeah.
You know, soaking up water.
Well,
They
thinking
sure
about
could.
the 5 of you guys, you all 5 are very intelligent, smart people.
Absolutely.
We all went to school. We all went to college. Never had no trouble in school. You know, but the only trouble we ever had was men and women.
well, Karyl, let me ask you a question. What is the one thing that you inherited from mom that is probably your biggest attribute?
The biggest one.
Attribute that you inherited.
I think the ability to stand on my own 2 feet, the ability to get through rough times. If I hadn't have been raised to be tough, I could not have made it through certain episodes of my life.
Sure.
I never did give up. I always figured there's a way out. You know, if I think hard enough, I can figure my way out about anything. Be the strength that was there. And she never held us back from learning. We had 2 rules.
Sure.
You couldn't fight each other. Everybody had to be in the house at dark. That was it. So when it came to learning and stuff and religion, she left that up to us. And I think that's one reason that we didn't have anybody standing over well, you're going to do it this way, you're going to do it at all, you ain't going to do this, you ain't going to do that. Mommy just, like, learn. That's it. You could just learn. You could be your own self, go your own way. To me, some of the kids thought she didn't have much interaction with us. I thought that's about the best thing she could have done for us because we all developed our own psychological way of thinking, our own toughness, and we were all tough. If we hadn't
Yeah.
been tough, we couldn't have got to where we were at. There was no money. I'm talking zero. But we all
Yeah.
found ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love
Well,
hearing about
Carol.
background.
Well, Carol, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What is your one attribute from mom that you cherish the most?
I don't know, but quite a few that I think.
Strength.
Definitely think strength, but also think kindness. I'm kind to everybody basically, and I believe in that it gets returned back to you tenfold. And I think my life sometimes is proof of that. But yeah, I think strength is a big one too.
Yeah.
Learning to
Well-
be a survivor. I think kindness,
Well-
openness. There's just so many. I mean, I don't know. And I'm still, growing as a person. I keep evolving. So sometimes
Yeah.
one attribute may dim and another one move forward brightly. So, what do you think yours is?
Well, before I go into that, let me just say that the one thing that you and our mother have in common is I've never known either one of you to never look like $1,000,000.
Like a what?
Like $1,000,000. That's one thing Mom always taught me is like, look your best.
Look your best.
If you do
Absolutely.
yourself up, you feel good about yourself. And I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but society does treat you differently. If you look like you're going to the grocery store and you just rolled out of bed and your hair's not combed and your face is not washed and you're in your pajamas, people are going to treat you way differently.
First impressions is
Yeah.
a lasting impression.
Yeah. So she taught me skincare, all that. Just because we only have one body, we've got to take care of it, and it's not just all looks. It's got to take care of yourself.
And then too, I think I did. I might not have later on, but at one time I made sure everybody had their vitamins and
Yeah.
stuff like that,
Yeah.
and made sure everybody had enough food to
Yeah.
eat. Might not been what you wanted all the time, but it was good for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I was
That's right.
going on. Kenny didn't like
That's
what
right.
I fixed for him lots of times, but it was good for him. And I did what the doctor
Well-
said, but now had to do over with. I'd done that differently, honey. And,
Well-
and some things I
well-
couldn't cook too good, but we survived.
Yeah.
We survived. And my girls, Jenny would tell me right now, she used to love to watch me get ready.
Oh
in the
yeah.
morning.
Oh, I still remember at a young age, like when we lived on
Wow.
Grapevine, I'd watch you you had blue eyeshadow, and I just remember all that. And you used to use oil of Olay all the time on your skin.
Yeah.
I remember, and I was really little then. I was
Yeah,
really little.
really.
Never seen either one of you not look like $1,000,000.
Oh Lord. I do sometimes. Like if I know I'm not going to leave the house, I'm like going to give my skin a chance to breathe.
I do that sometimes.
I don't wake up looking like $1,000,000. I promise you that.
It's one thing I've learned.
Well,
Our skin is good enough. If you just use a touch of eye makeup, you can go all
Yeah.
day without any makeup on your face.
Yeah,
Now,
that's true.
That's a fact.
That's true.
And I had two very pretty girls now. My girls are beautiful. They sure are. My boys are real. My boys,
Yeah.
I always thought I had the prettiest boys.
Yeah, definitely.
well, I've always said, all the looks in the family went to Karyl, and the rest of us was fighting over genetic scrap. So,
I think we're all
but-
pretty good looking.
but the one attribute I can say I inherited from my mom is work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah, work, yeah.
Mom has taught me work
That's a
ethic,
big one.
and
I learned that from
am
Grandma
so,
and Mommy.
I mean, I am so, and I am so appreciative of that.
Yeah, I'll
That
tell you another thing too. No matter what's going on in your life, no matter how low you feel, work is the best therapy you ever get. It sure is.
well,
I believe
well, if
that.
you don't have a purpose in life, um, then you don't tend to live as long. But as long as you have a purpose in life, you usually live
You gotta have a
to
goal. Yeah.
see that purpose through.
Yeah.
So, um, so that is one attribute from you, Mom, that I think I have received that
Yeah.
that I am most thankful for
I
is
never was afraid of work.
the work ethic.
And we lived like actually growing up like 18th century people. Sometimes you had electricity. We never did have running water, bathroom, or telephone until we got grown. Then mommy got that stuff.
Yeah.
But we didn't pay attention to it. You know, everybody around us lived the same way.
Well, Mom,
Very few
I
people ever had any of that stuff, and I guess we were really working hard and didn't really realize it was just everyday stuff to us, you know.
Yeah.
And when I got on a public job, I thought, God, this is easy. This.
yeah.
When I
Well,
went to work in a linen factory, and then in General Electric, and I didn't like office work. Office work didn't pay anything all that much. I hated office work. And
yeah.
so I made transfer out to the floor, and where I could make some money. I liked it a whole lot better. It's my kind of people out there, young people, not a bunch of old office cronies. And I liked it out on the floors and made better money. And I mean, the work was easy. And I'm thinking, and these girls are complaining about working. They don't even know what work is. And then you had to be fast and efficient. Now you forget about. You might be efficient, but you ain't gonna be fast on no job.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
that's
Mom.
just a thing of the past.
Well, Mom, there were very few times in our childhood growing up that I can never, I don't ever remember you not having at least two jobs
Yeah,
and cleaning people's houses on the side.
yeah,
So
She
just to
did what
give
she
us
had
the
to do
bare
to
essentials.
provide.
yeah. I did. I did what
Yeah.
I had to do. But you know, I was okay.
Oh yeah.
My children turned out real
And
good.
Mom still looked like $1,000,000.
I wish I did.
And she still looked like $1,000,000. I have never known her not look like $1,000,000.
Well, I'll tell you what, you were a good looking boy too. I
Yes,
always
he
thought
is.
all my children were.
Well, I've got a couple of fun questions I'm going to ask Mom. Just
Okay.
goofy questions. Okay. If you had to eat one food daily for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Potatoes.
Okay. A
Potatoes.
certain way you like them fixed, or
You can fix. You can do anything with a potato.
okay. Okay. And if you could have a superpower, but it had to be kind of useless, what would it be?
Be useless.
I don't even think. No, I think any superpower. Let's not even say useless.
I would like to have the power to be able to think about. I go back to Solomon, King Solomon. He could think about 3 different subjects at one time.
Oh wow.
I'd love to be able to do that.
Oh, I've not heard anybody
I
say that
would.
superpower yet. That's pretty good.
Yes, it is.
It's pretty
That
good.
is wisdom. I know in college one time in public speaking, we all had to draw out a little piece of paper out of a bowl that passed around. And make a speech on whatever we drawed out. Mine
Okay.
said, if you were walking along the beach and you kicked a bottle up out of the sand, and a genie came out and gave you 3 wishes, what would they be? And I told him, I said, well, the first one, I would want longevity.
Oh yeah.
I want to live a long time.
Me too.
The second one, I want wisdom.
Oh yeah.
And then, then I want all my children to be happy and healthy. That's what I want.
Yeah.
The 3 wishes.
Yeah.
And I think I said wisdom was the last one. I said wisdom to enjoy it all.
Yeah.
My children and longevity.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
I like that.
I didn't say nothing about money in my head. I can make money, you know.
True.
Don't
True.
worry about money.
Okay, if you could be any kind of animal, even mystical, what kind would you be and why?
Even mystical. Lord, I don't know. An animal? Unicorn? Pegasus horse.
Oh, there you
I'd
go.
love to be a Pegasus
There
horse.
you
I'd
go.
fly through the clouds. I would
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, that'd be Mom.
When I was little, I would climb to the tallest tree, climb all the way up, and just so I could look all around me. And I always wondered what it would be like to be up in the clouds. My first
Fine,
airplane
yes.
ride was fantastic.
Oh, yeah. God, I love to fly, too.
I would like to be Pegasus.
Okay, I got one more. Okay. What would the title of your autobiography be if it had to make people laugh? Or if you don't even want to make people laugh, what would the title of your autobiography be?
Autobiography.
To catch people's attention, like, you need to read this book. It's interesting.
No, I hadn't even thought about that.
That's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that would take some thought.
I don't know. The life of a hillbilly girl, I guess.
There you go.
Life of a hillbilly girl.
I love it.
Love it.
I bet Dennis could think of a really good title for you.
Yeah, he probably could.
Yeah. Like a really good, catchy one. That's a pretty good one, though. Yeah, I think we all should think about that sometimes. If we had to do an autobiography, what would we want it titled?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm going to think on that. That'd be a good follow-up thing.
I already know what mine would be.
What?
Mine would be me Forrest Gumping my way through life.
Doing what?
Tell Mom again, Kenny.
Forrest Gumping my way through life.
Oh, oh, honey. Oh, shoot.
Man, I don't know what mine would be. I'm going to put some thought into that, though. Yeah.
That's just straight off the top of my head. I never
I
thought
like
about
that. I like that, though. I like it. I did get a book I did order through Amazon. One of my friends recommended it to me called Hillbilly Ideology, I think, or something like that. I got to think what it is again, but I haven't started reading it yet. But she says it's really good. So, well, this has been so much fun. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Now, my
It's been a
brother's
blast.
book, Adam 2, is a real good book. And then he has several trilogies after that. They're all good. Then he has 2 books about our growing up.
I'll have to.
Penny's in his last book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you didn't know
Oh,
that?
yeah, I did. Penny
Yeah.
showed me. She's like so
Yeah.
proud of it. I'll have to tag his books and stuff in the podcast so people can find them.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I think to summarize, I think our heritage, despite all of the curveballs and the loop-de-loops that we have witnessed and gone through, we have a great heritage, and I wouldn't trade anything
We
for
do.
it.
We do. Oh, it's so different. We've got Mom's heritage on one side, which is completely different from Dad's. A lot of good stuff come from that. Now, Mom's people's pretty well educated. And then we got Dad's side of the family and everything he's always done and everything, you know, I didn't know my daddy that many years, but what years I did know him, I learned from him. And
Yeah.
I've always been real proud of him. My grandma was always proud of Dad. And she'd always talk about Dad throughout my young life to where I pretty well knew what he would be, you know. So actually, I think we have a very interesting heritage. It's just like, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different, it comes together right there, you know. Both parents are so different.
yeah. And we're both,
Sure.
we're still continuing to build on that
Yeah.
generation to generation to generation. So,
Absolutely. And well, thank you, Mom, for everything you've done for us
It was so
growing
much
up.
fun.
And
This is fun. I really
We
like
didn't
it.
plan this. It
It was
worked out
ju-
great.
Yeah, nothing was planned. That's what I like about it.
Woo.
Now, thank you all. So I got to say this: my children were a lot better children than what I was. They sure
No,
were.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's debatable.
I think you were.
well, well, Mother, if there was anybody who should be in line for a sainthood, it would be you.
Yeah.
And thank you. And yeah, we owe
Thank
you
you
a
for
debt.
being what you are. You've always
We,
thought about me and Carol. You've always thought about the rest of the
Everybody,
family.
yeah.
You sure did.
Always.
yeah,
Always.
Always
we,
helped. Always helped.
yeah, we owe you a debt we can never repay.
Oh, you pay. You pay every day you live good.
I
Every day
appreciate
you
that,
live
Mom.
good, you pay it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, Mom. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yay. Well, this was a good one.
Yes, it is.
We'll have to do it
Absolutely.
again.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can't.
Love you, baby.
I love you
Love
too.
you.
And Carol and Mom, again, thank you for being two of the most important people in my life. Thank you so much.
Same here.
Love you, baby.
Love
Same
you,
here.
bub. Love you.
Same
All
here,
right.
We'll
baby.
call you in a few minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
honey.
Bye bye.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. There we go.
That was fantastic.